Joined today by Emma Montgomery, who is our product specialist, guru, SmartSuite celebrity you see all over SmartSuite. She's also the maiden of matcha. I had to shout that out to her. And Jeff, who leads many of our enterprise customer segments. In other words, when you make a strategic investment in SmartSuite, you get Jeff. He's worth it. And as part of that, he stays close to the pulse in terms of what our customers are doing. So hopefully that was a due introduction to all, but I'd like to go ahead and start to get to know Edward just to warm up so everyone can understand where he's coming from. Before we do that, Jeff, Emma, any housekeeping?
No, feel free to put feedback in the chat, and then we will be having a Q&A session. So if you have questions on today's content, feel free to put those in the Q&A.
Excellent. Questions in the Q&A down below. Reactions as well. You're going to love some of the things you see today. So let's go ahead and use as reactions down the bottom of Zoom. Hey, let's keep this chat lively as folks roll in. We'd love to hear where you're calling in from today. All right, Edward. All right, let's start at the beginning. Let's go back before your days of Cryogenic. Love to hear a little bit about your background and what got you to where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't usually do this, so I apologize to everybody. And it's early for me. So again, sorry for kind of organizing my thoughts in the fly here. But, ultimately, my background, I was in the military for a while. And then after that, I got picked up by Caterpillar right after a large acquisition for them. And so I immediately got thrust into Caterpillar production system, which is very closely tied to Toyota production system, and just kind of lean manufacturing methodology. And I really bought into that and subscribed to this whole concept that you should be able to walk through a manufacturing shop floor and you should be able to just visually be able to see how you're performing. And so as I started to kind of grow up professionally, I got into a situation where some partners and I started buying businesses, and we quickly outpaced kind of the old methodology that we had of kind of managing those businesses just via spreadsheets. And so that's where I came from, is really wanting to have a visual way to manage new businesses to us that we didn't necessarily understand in the beginning what the critical points of performance were. And that's what SmartSuite really provided for us.
Love it. I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you for your service, and to all the veterans on the call today, in light of yesterday being Veterans Day. Thank you genuinely for making this country what it is. I love the background too. So patriotic. All right. Okay. So come from a background in visual, what was the term you used for visual management? All right. Which is a new one to me, but it makes total sense, right? You want to see what's going on. You need to be able to understand the data and all that, especially in more of a tangible setting, like a manufacturing floor. So you're using spreadsheets, you're using other tools to try to map out the processes and everything that needs to happen within these businesses you're acquiring. How does that then lead you to realizing perhaps we need another technology or another tool to up-level us?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the, I think, challenges with small companies that are growing through acquisition is you start buying entities and you really don't understand them yet. And so for us specifically, we were a manufacturing repair business that bought a transportation or logistics business. And as I was kind of working my way through, okay, well, what are the critical things? I think of that transportation business and marrying really three things together, which are the driver, the tractor that the driver is driving, and then the trailer itself that's also on the road. We're a hazmat carrier, so there's a bunch of compliance and regulation pieces that go into that. But at its core, it's like we have these drivers that are all over the United States. So I can't necessarily go out on the shop floor and just walk work cell to work cell. But how do we, as a team, as a leadership team that's dispersed, look at that stuff? And so I don't know if now's a good time for me to kind of share what we started kind of putting together. But I mean,
let's go for it. Yeah. Share. We love visuals here.
How's that? Is that
Perfect.
my share? Okay, awesome. So here's the original. Actually, this is the 2.0 version. The original version was me taking what I had in spreadsheets, or the team had in spreadsheets, and really just putting it in the SmartSuite. And it wasn't linked yet, and it wasn't automating itself every single day. So 1.0 was, as I was wrestling through things, just an improved visual looking spreadsheet. And I'll get into what 2.0 provides, but what you're looking at is you're looking at drivers, you're looking at tractors, and you're looking at trailers. And then we have a solution that we built for tasks, because we could have tasks that are associated with each one of those three variables. And then we have a summary or a dashboard. There is a heck of a lot of information that is going on in each one of these elements. So for each driver, I think there's probably 10 to 20 pieces of information per driver that we're tracking. And then there's another 10 to 20 for the tractors and the trailers. And originally, when we got going, all those critical pieces of information, we spent the vast majority of our time trying to report that information versus spending time actually using the information to run the business. And so, we obviously got color coding, and, there's things like accidents, inspections, and investigations. No means it's good. It's, we didn't have any from yesterday. And we started to get into that element. This business is changing hourly. And so we needed something that we could essentially have up on the screen, and other people are tracking and talking to drivers and wherever they are at in the world. And as soon as I've got this up just about all day, every day, as soon as somebody changes one of these cues to red, that is what I immediately cue into. And there should be an explanation of, okay, why did that happen? And what are we doing to solve it? And that's grounded back into Caterpillar production system. If you think about a manufacturing shop floor and you're pushing out a D7 dozer every 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is, and there's a work cell that goes down for whatever reason, it could be parts, it could be people, it could be process, a number of things why that work cell would go down. They have visual indicators like lights, sirens that are going, oh my gosh, we need leadership to dive in and support that work cell to make sure that you can continue to produce product. All my goal was to take that concept, that visual concept, for a team where the leadership is spread across 3 different states, and we have drivers and really all of the lower 48. And that's what we have here. And then there's a executive summary that Emma helped us build that we also monitor, where I'm starting to tie this to some financial metrics. And so this is from a hardcore operations perspective. Okay, what are we looking at all day, every day to make sure that we're supporting the driver so that he's successful? And then that rolls up from a executive perspective, so that on a daily snapshot, we're looking at things to make sure that we're hitting financial goals and targets. And what this did for us is we went from spending the vast majority of our time just trying to report to reporting was easy, and it was rolling up to everybody. And now we can use that information and that data to actually make decisions and run the business. And so we started to spend a lot more time running the business. As we've gotten past the initial, oh my gosh, we think these 10 things are the important things to look at. Now that we're able to look at more and more stuff, we're getting further into what I would consider the second and third rung improvement. And so it's just really trying to drive that culture of okay, we got that variable under control, so let's continuously improve. What's the next one we're going to tackle? And that's another thing that I love about SmartSuite, is that because we've built this, we changed in a leadership stand-up solution this morning. The team said, you know what, we got that under control, but this thing's really kicking our butt. Let's go ahead and add that variable into the daily stand-up. And we, on the fly added it. Now that's something that we're starting to review and hopefully improve.
I love this. Data is power if you have control over it. And what I like about the approach, and I know we discussed this briefly yesterday, is you go and take a look at the biggest fire you need to fight, or what is the challenge that we need to overcome? You're able to solve for that, and then you've gone to the next layer, almost like fortifying your business, right? Going layers deeper. You don't, I'll say it, you don't get that when you go and search for a point solution that solves for that one problem. But when you invest in a platform and you put in the time like you've done here with SmartSuite, you have the ability to solve for multiple problems all in the same context, which ultimately makes it a tighter solve. What is next on the roadmap, if you will? So you think about the next thing that you want to add. You just talked about revamping the stand-ups.
Yeah, for sure. So our business, we got really 3, and we grew through acquisitions. So we bought 3 businesses in about 3 years, and each one of them is quite a bit different. And so we feel like IGS was the first one. This business is called Integrity Gas Services. This was the first one that we focused on. It was the one that was keeping me up at night, going, man, do we have the things under control that we absolutely have to have under control? And the next one is something that actually Jeff and Emma have been helping us with. We've got another business where instead of drivers, tractors, and trailers, it is cryogenic tanks and sites. And we're seeing some explosive growth there. But the hurdle right now is, quite frankly, the sales side of it. And so we're building out, not that I'm dogging HubSpot, but we were in HubSpot and we had more data than we know what to do with, but we weren't making good decisions and we weren't making timely decisions. And so we're building out that same concept, that CRM concept in SmartSuite. And already the team understands the data better. And so we're facilitating decisions. And because it's all in SmartSuite, those critical KPIs, the businesses are different, but I can roll them up. They're all going up into a single leadership deck that we review every single day. And that's the goal. So in a Toyota production system or Caterpillar production system, they talk about a concept of like a Gemba walk, where you walk the manufacturing shop floor as a leadership team, and you go from kind of work cell to work cell or department to department, and it all rolls up to the leadership so that you're present, engaged, and you're at the point where you make decisions. And that's what we're working on is each of the businesses will have their department level, business level control board within SmartSuite, and that all rolls up to the leadership level.
And the most powerful thing there is just the collective of these all rolling up into the same place, right? If you're let's say you're in different tools, you're looking at these silos, sales versus marketing versus production versus whatever it else is, having that data together to make unified decisions ultimately is going to allow you to be most decisive and have the data that you need. So I love that. Anything else, Emma? I know that you've been, close to the pulse here with everyone in terms of the building and the ideation, and this build like he does.
Sure. I mean, I think something that just stood out to me is actually not about 2.5 years ago. I was on our first call and you just instantly got it. And what really stood out was your role and the autonomy that you had in building. So we had a conversation, and then that weekend, you basically taught yourself how to use SmartSuite, and you've enabled yourself to build these processes on your own. So that I thought was an interesting point, how leadership can be really involved in the back end of building. But I'm curious, initially on our conversation, what was the aha moment for you that SmartSuite was going to be the tool that you were going to pursue your business processes for?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that in a small business like ours, we don't get to point the finger anywhere. So if we fail, it's because of us. And so that's what got me up early on that weekend 2.5 years ago, was like, no, I need to know. I think the exact issue was we had a tractor that had been down for a period of time at a repair shop. And nobody was following up on how the repair was coming along. And we were leasing another tractor for that driver. And in my mind, I'm just burning money. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm not tracking, or the team's not tracking a tractor being down. We don't have that at our fingertips. And so therefore, because it's not jumping out at us, we're not working it. We're inefficient. And so I basically, my spreadsheet of tracking equipment went into SmartSuite, and I was like, man, this is a great way to visually look at it. And, I know there's a bunch of different ways where you can have a centrally located spreadsheet where other people can add information, but I felt like, wow, this is better. And then there was the moment of, wait a minute, I can link my tractor to a driver, and then I can link it to a trailer. And that just was crazy powerful for me. And now I've gone through things like insurance audits, Department of Transportation audits, where, an auditor will come in and they'll say, okay, well, that's great, that driver is connected to that tractor, but we need to see the training, the regulatory required training for that driver. And because I've got solutions linked to solutions, I can really quickly go, well, here's all that guy's certifications or that equipment certifications. And before it was multiple systems. Oh, wait a minute. Give me a minute. I'm going to go dive into that system. Give me a minute. I got to go talk to this person because that information is somewhere else. And we would always get through an audit just fine. But just an audit would go from taking 3 days down to like a day. A DOT audit went from 3 days down to a day. And the guy's like, oh, you got everything. Good. I'm out of here.
How good is, yeah, the power of a leader to show they know their business. Of course, you know it before SmartSuite, but to be able to just prove it and have all that connected. I love that. Absolutely love that. Steve had just a comment here that he had dropped in the Q&A. It's more around like he's working with a prospective SmartSuite client that's viewing, sees the power in SmartSuite, but is wondering like, how do you put together the flow? Okay, so there's the tables of data. SmartSuite is a relational database in the back end. It allows you to map all the data that's important to your business, connect it, build relationships. How did you think about creating that actual flow of work?
So at first, because I overcomplicate everything, I thought of it in terms of, okay, I've built some pretty snazzy spreadsheets in my life. Let me build a pretty snazzy spreadsheet in SmartSuite. And what I quickly realized is that what's the point in that, right? Like it's not, frankly, I don't think SmartSuite's a better spreadsheet. It's prettier, but I'm quicker in Excel. I'm not really trying to solve that problem. And so when I started building, it was more so I scrapped that. It was like, no, what do I need? If I'm the pilot of my business, like what am I looking at on a daily basis, daily, weekly, monthly basis in order to be effective? And the moment that I started building from the perspective of what do I want good to look like? What do I want the end state to look like? Then I back into it now. I start with the end result. What do I want my business leaders to see? Because I'm looking at it. And then I can build the rest of the process kind of forward. Does that make sense at all?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and it makes me think about, again, in SmartSuite, when you're considering who you're building for, having the perspective of you're not just building for yourself. Like in a spreadsheet, you're typically throwing the data down and giving you what you need to do your job. But whether you're using views, whether you're using permissions or slices of the data, it is critical early on. I feel like, Jeff, we have this conversation with customers, especially like newer customers, all day, every day. Go ahead and write down all the stakeholders that might be involved in these workflows. Either this particular workflow that you may be starting with, or tangentially, right? Like what would it connect to? Who else would be involved? Just be mindful of that list of stakeholders, internal, external, customers, clients, whatever it might be, because you do need to put that lens on. All the noise, so if you're a builder, like all the beautiful data and views and slices of it that you may want to see and be consuming, your job is to take that and narrow it down to a very clean, simplified experience that feels like it was built for that stakeholder. And I think that's what you've done with many of the dashboards you've built, Edward, is like, my leaders just need to see this. I don't want them too far into the weeds. They need this to make decisions. I need my drivers to see this. Anything else you want to share on that mindset? I know you use permissions and you kind of slice things up in a nice way, but feel free to riff on that.
Yeah, I saw a question pop up and it said, well, what metrics are you looking at or what have you built? And so the way I would answer that is everything that I think is important in the business. And so I pretty early in my work career, I read a book, and I'm going to butcher this. I wish I would have like prepped for that, but it was something like, hey, these are the things that the CEO wish you knew, or the CEO, wishes all the employees knew, or something to that effect. Because again, I was transitioning out of the military, not a business guy at all. And I was like, well, what's important? And in that book, it really focused on your financials. And at the time, I had no idea what a P&L was, or balance sheet, or a cash flows, right? I had none of that. And so that sparked me to really start walking through the shop floor, the manufacturing shop floor, because this is back when it was hardcore manufacturing, and try and see the business through the financials. Okay, wait a minute. What is that? How is that impacting the P&L? How is that impacting the balance sheet? How is that impacting cash flows? And so that's what I've taken with me over the last, 10 years of buying businesses and bolting them on. We sold a couple. We flipped quite a few. And the big thing that SmartSuite's done is everything through your financials. If we're going through like a monthly review of our financials and it's kicking my butt, I will challenge myself to say, you know what, we're going to stare at that for the next quarter. And almost immediately, I'm like, well, how are we going to look at that? How are the business leaders going to look at that? And that's when we create a SmartSuite solution, either a new solution for it, or we just cull the data out. This time of year, everybody's struggling for receivables, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go into the new year with anything that's past due. And so on the leadership review every single morning right now, we have the naughty list. And the naughty list are customers who are past due. And that is driving action in the business. And so, we measure all kinds of stuff, but it's ultimately, for me, it's the business leaders that they have to come to me and report on their financials. And at the end of the day, they're poorly performing in an area, and the answer isn't, I'm going to measure it and I'm going to show it. Then it's go figure that out. And we'll measure it together.
A little bit, Emma.
Perfect. I just want to thank you so much, Edward. It's been a pleasure working with you, and you just demonstrate the value so well. And I'm, excited to work with you in our continued engagement, building out more use cases. So thanks for joining us today.
Awesome, for sure.
Happy to do it.
All right. Well, I'm going to focus in on like how to get there, the strategy around dashboards. I'm going to show you some dashboards and then give you some tools to think about how to create dashboards that are effective. Ones like Edward's that he's created for his business. So my role really sits at strategy and execution. So understanding Edward's business and businesses of the like help me execute and create and collaborate with them on a dashboard. So I'll go ahead and share my screen really quickly. Can you see okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Perfect. So when I think about strategy, and Edward really has honed in on these points very well, you like to start with a question and not the chart or visual that you're looking for. So as a leader of my business, what do I need to know about my business today? And then what are the 3 to 5 insights your team needs to effectively run the day? And this can apply to different teams within your business. But rather than best practices, instead of adding a bunch of metrics and charts, because you set up the data structure and the data lives there, focusing in on what Edward has so greatly demonstrated, what you want to know as a business leader. The next step would be to design dashboards for specific roles. So dashboards have the ability to have different functions for different audiences. So Edward showed you a lot of leadership dashboards, but dashboards are also workflow hubs and streams where people can perform daily activities and have ownership over their responsibilities. And I'll show you some examples of those. Making dashboards actionable. So avoiding the chart clutter, every single widget with piece of information that you're pulling from different places should have an answer on why it matters and what action it's creating behind that. And then embedding dashboards in daily rhythm. So they should be worked within and reviewed and not something that you pull out when the time comes. So embedding them, as Edward has in his daily stand-ups and work streams and reviews and check-ins, and sharing them out to stakeholders is where they can become highly effective within your company. So these are the 5-step frameworks that I like to follow and I use strategically with customers who are trying to think about dashboards. So defining your audience and data story. We've explained that well enough today. And there's a lot of building behind the scenes that take place before you create the dashboard. And there's a lot of resources that we can provide to you on how to build that data structure. Once your data is structured, then you can start to say, what story do I want to tell and who is going to be reading this story? The next step would be to choose the right data. So the data lives in different tables and different solutions, perhaps. SmartSuite dashboards can bring all of that data together in one place. And then organizing and styling your widgets for the audience. Dashboards are very visual and they can be styled in a way that maybe you haven't quite tried before. So I'm going to provide some advice on how to style dashboards to make them easy to use for people who haven't used a tool like SmartSuite or a no-code or even process management tool, so that they're only seeing the information that they need and should. And then asking your audience for feedback. So as you're building out these dashboards, interviewing the people who are using them can be highly effective versus just creating what you think that they need to see. I'm going to dive straight into a couple dashboards here. And I just want to emphasize that these dashboards are available for you in solution templates for you to download and rearrange and add. There's styling, and these are real business processes that you can download. So I will go into, I just want to show you where you can find these. If you go into the bottom left-hand corner, add new solution, and you go into our solution library, we have many free, and these are not necessarily demonstration data and a backbone of a process. These are built out processes that are ready to use for your company. So if I'll just do sales, for example. The sales CRM is fully built out with dashboards. We have every business processes that your company may need from an operations standpoint and even industry specific. So looking into just a couple, I'll go into our sales ops one.
Hey, would you mind zooming in just a little bit, just so sure? I know you have the best eyes in the business, but
Is this better?
yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So starting with this first tab, dashboards. And if you aren't quite familiar with the way SmartSuite pulls these dashboard data, everything is made up of data from tables. So tables are your databases, house information. SmartSuite can pull data from other tables and other processes into one landing page. So SmartSuite is highly cross-functional, and teams from other processes can pull data into one place for you to see those connected workflows. For example, sales can have insight into marketing. Marketing can create content that's relevant to sales through one place. So this data you're seeing here is pulled from different tables which house data. They look like spreadsheets, Edward said, but they can be viewed in different ways. And dashboards are just a view type. So you may be familiar with some of the grid views, card views, Kanban views from other tools like SmartSuite. But where SmartSuite really stands out is the ability to pull this data into one place through the linked record field that Edward was saying was so powerful. Dashboards can be created just by selecting create a new dashboard at the bottom, and you can make it public or private. So I was mentioning dashboards are role-based, or highly suggested to have dashboards be role-based, but a lot of individuals have had autonomy over creating dashboards for the way that they like to work. In this solution template, we have a variety of different role-based dashboards. So starting with the sales executive dashboard. These are meant to be a workflow hub, so a place that you can see work and analyze your business like Edward was mentioning. However, they're also a place where people can perform work. We go into a more workflow stream dashboard. We can see sales rep, how they would interact with their opportunities, how they would manage their activities, how they would organize action items. So rather than going into the actual data itself, I can see and I can make data relevant to me that I need to do at this moment versus searching for information in multiple places. Another example, we have a self-serve employee portal for IT service management, creating almost as if it's a website landing page that's extremely visual for people to submit requests. So buttons for me to be able to submit a form that then creates, need to turn that form on, that then creates a workflow. So not only are people editing and viewing data, but they're actually creating a workflow within the process and handing it off to the next individual. Creating an IT team portal. So these tickets are coming in, they're assigned, we're managing the tickets, we're managing the metrics and analytics around them, and maybe even any change around those tickets. Another use case being inventory management. And so inventory and fulfillment teams can manage high-level inventory to make decisions about their business based on the orders and prioritize the orders based on the products that are in stock. And then lastly, I'm going to show you just a simple project management solution. So there's 3 different portals for different individuals or stakeholders in this process. We have a project request portal. So we're pulling in anyone who needs to request a project within the company can submit a project request via a form, and this will then kickstart the workflow. Anytime a project is requested, the individual has visibility into seeing their history of requests. Dashboards are not only just a view of this, but you can actually drill into the data and see everything you need to. So rather than going behind the scenes and accessing the spreadsheet, you can click into these widgets in real time and open the records to see the data here. If I scroll down here, there's a variety of different ways to view the data. So if I prefer to see it in a selection dropdown, and see the core fields. Here, we can use a record selector and a record details widget. If we go into the approval tab here, I'll show you a quick example of how a process would work in this case. We have a project approval, so a certain criteria of projects with a requested budget may need approval from the company. This individual is in charge of approving a certain threshold of projects, and this would show up in their queue. It looks like I will say that Jeff requested this. I am the approver. I was then notified that this had been submitted. I can review the project and budget. I can then sign off on this and change it to approved, or even requires changes. So if this is not approved and it requires changes, I can go ahead and leave a comment here. So I can say budget is too high. And once I do that, and if I send it off to the person, it will go ahead and notify them. So I've done this at a very high level, but everything behind the scenes is happening. Automations are firing and handoffs are happening very easily. And the other thing to note is we can create task-focused dashboards as well. So Edward was mentioning there's a lot of different high-level metrics that are happening, but there may be quick tasks around them to achieve certain goals. So having a visualization of what needs to be done on a daily basis across processes can be very helpful. So it may be common in a smaller company for people to have a lot of different responsibilities within different processes. Even in a large organization, people have tasks within different touch points of processes. So having a high-level to-do or task tab, action tab, request tab that they're actually performing the work in and it's coming into the work stream. So in this case, you can better focus in what your priority is based on customer, based on ARR, based on the criticality of the operation in your company, and you can create this notice here. And then lastly, dashboards are actually meant to serve as a place for people to be educated on the process. So not only are we creating the process, but we're updating it and we're educating the people that need to come in and use the process. So highly recommend always having a getting started or SOP tab here for new people coming in and using it. Any questions so far? I am next going to just walk through some of the widgets and some recommendations for design elements, but I wanted to stop to see if anyone had any questions before I do that.
Just two quick ones. What was a comment from Daisy saying somehow she overlooked the signature field in SmartSuite? Yeah, it is one of the 44 field types that is lesser used at times, but yeah, a lot of value in embedding into your workflows there. And then Constantine's asking here in the Q&A about client portals. Short answer there is yes. We have a more formal approach coming soon. I know we've been saying that for a while. There's some underlying work that's happening from a product perspective to better facilitate that. But please do reach out to us directly. And you can reach out in the intercom in the bottom right-hand section there. We have some custom options of how you can do this now and not waiting for this formal release. So in short, yes, we can help you out.
All right, perfect. Two more. So I'm going to go ahead and create a dashboard view. So as I mentioned previously, it's a view type within SmartSuite, and I'm going to make this public. When you go to create a dashboard, you'll see add widget. These are data elements. So they can come in the form of many different types, whether you're looking to design this, create frequently asked questions, text areas, space the dashboard to make it cohesive, or if you're looking to drill down into data deeper, we have the ability to select different types of data and display data from that particular record. So if you have an opportunity, you can show core information about the opportunity side by side. Around actions, we can filter data very quickly in a visual option. So think about if you had a page of different metrics and summary cards and even a grid view, you can use a filter to actually edit the entire dashboard. For example, if you wanted to see the opportunity metrics for an individual sales rep, you could change the filter and it would show and create a filtration for all of them. If you want to organize high-level metrics about your company, you can use these. And then almost every view type that you see in SmartSuite behind the scenes within tables is available in dashboards. So rather than bringing people into the specific views, that's not of their preference, you can actually create a dashboard that's specific and shows these different views in action. Many different chart options to show visuals from different places in your process. And I won't go into all of these, but there are so many that you can use, especially if you're interested in using custom code or scripting if you're more advanced. That is a possibility as well. So I will start with, we do have some questions about using widgets, exploring widgets and how to best use them. So I will touch on that. On the very top of the dashboard, it's good to start with either a banner or a hero widget. So typically on the first tab of the dashboard, which you can create tabs for. So let me actually first just add a widget. At the top here, we have add navigation. And I highly recommend that you create different tabs at the top and organize information to different buckets that make sense and flow through the process. So I can type in the first one as overview. Maybe this is a landing page with frequently asked questions about the process. The next one can be, I'll do project submissions and then project approvals. You would select enable tabs and then you can see them at the top. You can center them or keep them aligned. And then you can add a logo to the dashboard. So solution images are all the solution images that are specific to this particular solution, but you can create an asset library for branding. So as you're creating multiple dashboards in different processes, your team can reuse and utilize them. And not only are there specific brand images, but you can also search for images using Unsplash, locate popular images, or even AI generate them very easily. Once I add the logo, I'm actually going to resize it to be a little bit smaller. And then I can create action buttons if I would like. And these action buttons would just, so if I wanted to say submit feedback around this dashboard, I could do that. I'll put a link here just for example, and the button would show at the top here. We can add footers to make this feel as if it's more like a website landing page. Speaking of client portals or company portals, you can create links and social networks taglines at the very bottom with a simple and advanced option. And then for styling, this will make more sense when you add more widgets, but based on the data you're looking for, whether it's a report or a metric hub or a workflow stream, you may want to select a different page for that purpose. At the very top, we have a hero widget. So we can change the image here and the text here to be relevant to the process. Another option would be to use a banner. So banners at the top can be a color, and you can also upload an image here. So if I go to upload an image, I'm going to go into popular images, and you can see the options here. I'll use this one. And then you can adjust the spacing and you want fix, and you can use some of these. Depending on the image size, it may look the best in different options. You can also scale down. I'll use that. And then you can title these, do project management. Adding a description can be helpful for people who want to see. So this is a view of all active projects. We'll keep it short, center it. We can create action buttons as well for people to submit new projects right off the banner there. And let's add the widget. So I'm going to go with this. I could have used this hero widget as well, but I will go with this for today. And then next, I highly recommend, especially on a overview tab, using frequently asked questions about the process can be helpful. So we have a couple different options of viewing those. We'll do 2 columns. I'll keep it at 1 for now, but you can create information about this particular process. I'll go right into project submissions. So same thing, it's nice to have a banner that highlights what this information is showing with the description, and we can style it to match some of the company branding. I'll use popular images, and then you can of course change the text to make the design better, as well as retitle or size the font. If you use metrics, summary cards at the top, they can be highly effective for creating metrics that stand out around the process. So a lot of times I will use a summary card to show I'll do new submissions in this case. So thinking about within project submissions, what are the key metrics I want to see? I want to see the new submissions, the ones that are in approval, and potentially the ones that have been approved. So here's where it gets very interesting. If you notice where you go into source, you'll see all the processes within your company that you built, all the solutions. Now, this is really powerful because not only are we pulling data from this solution, but we can pull data from any process and connect it to this dashboard. And that all is powered by what we call the linked record. Now I'll go in and locate my project management solution, and I'll select projects, and then we can add a filter. So I'm going to add a filter where the status is, I think it was requests. There we go. Where the status is needs review. So those are new submissions. We can style this as well to be small, medium, or large. And then we can change if we want it to be classic or modern. Classic is a lighter color. Modern is filled as color. Something also really important is to use spacing. So this can help the visual appeal be much better. And then a lot of times if you want the same style, I will duplicate this. So I'll do in review. You can duplicate the widget and it's going to have the same format. And then you can just adjust the filter and you can change the color as you want. You can either highlight at the top or not. I'll change this to orange to match the color, and I'll do changes required. So another thing I'm doing is I'm using colors to stand out for different items. So new submissions blue and reviews orange and red to indicate that these have changes that are required. So bringing my attention to that particularly. And then I like to have symmetry in this, so having 4 at the top will make it look good. And the next below, we can start to add other widgets. So maybe we'd like to see some charts. I'll add a chart and one other view type, and then I'll see if there are any questions. So again, I'm pulling from the source I want. I'd like to pull from my project management solution, pull from requests, lots of different chart options here, and we can pull from the values. So I will do budget by project type, just to show kind of more of a budget by project type.
And Emma, just a quick time check. We got 9 minutes to the top of the hour. Just want to let you know.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll do 2 more widgets and then we can stop for questions. So another thing, I'm going to put another space widget so then we can create some space between those. And then I will do one more to show. So talking about the different view types, let's go ahead and add I actually really like the calendar view on these, but I'm going to do a grid view so you can pull in those project requests to see them. And then we can filter. So this is a lot of data. So similar to creating views, you could filter out. So I'll do where the status is any of. We want it to show the ones that are relevant like this. We can begin to group, but what I'm going to do is create a filter widget to show how you can filter data very quickly. So this is, or I'll just say request pipeline. I can limit the number if I want, but I want to show all of them. I'll go ahead and move this below so we can see a full view. And then I'll add a filter widget. So this filter widget is interactive and you can connect it to other widgets. So you can connect it to every widget that we just added by selecting the source again, and then the available widgets will show. So I can start to even add it to all of my widgets I've created. And then we can begin to add the filters. So we can see who's the approver, what's the request status, the year, the requester, the project type, even the date range if I want. I'll do date submitted. And then we can drag that above at the top to show. So as I change these filters, if I'm working in this dashboard, you'll notice that they change in regards to what I'm selecting. And then we can remove, in this case, I would probably remove the toolbar once I have the data I want to see, so it looks cleaner. Adding another spacing widget here. So I showed overall project submissions, but just to start to understand, we may have another tab for project approvals and then my approvals, and potentially a getting started or SOPs to show how to use this process. But here's how I like to think about them. One more before we go. It's actually one of the most used widgets is the record selector and record details. So I showed you in the other solution, but I just want to show you how to set it up. So same thing, you'll pull from your source. I want to use the project management solution requests. And you can filter this data down. So a really interesting filter is the current user. So if you want this dashboard to be relevant to who's signed in, I can select current user. So you can do this for all dashboard widgets, and permissions may even not require you to do that because you can set permissions on these dashboards, and all of the permission levels you set from the source, the original source, will apply to these dashboards. That's another really important component. So if I go ahead and add this selector, I can move it down, and I can also show the options under style. I can show a list. And then you would pair it with the record details. And this allows me to see individual fields or items within that particular record. So I can show high level. So I probably want to see project name, type, request status, requester. And you can drag and drop these in the order that you want. And you can also add a style if you'd like. So side by side or above it, you could see the details as you toggle between here. One more recommendation, add help text. So help text can be very useful when you create dashboards because it can allow people to have context into the data. So what are we seeing here? Within each widget, you can go in below and you can add a description or help text that represents the data to give people an understanding of what it is. Lots more widgets I could add, just depending on what you're looking to achieve. But here would be my initial instruction on how to get started with these dashboards. They can be shared too. So once I create them, if I want to share this dashboard with a certain stakeholder, they can easily be shared using this URL or embed. All right, Rich, are there any questions?
And we do have a few quick ones. One from Daisy, just asking about optimizing this for mobile devices. Any tips you have for creating appropriate designs or whatever to ensure that folks can absorb this on the SmartSuite mobile app, which is on iOS and Android?
Yes, that's a good point. One thing I forgot to touch on at the end was the style. So you can adjust the style to be more compact or full screen. So I would assume that if you made it more compact, it would narrow it down on. But I'll have to do some testing myself. But that would be my initial recommendation.
Yeah. Also, just a quick check, Daisy, you can pull open your SmartSuite mobile app and just pull up the dashboard and see how it looks for you. It would be a similar experience to whoever you're designing it for. And then David is asking here, sort of a loaded question with 2 minutes left, but an interesting one for sure. Just learned about trying to shift annual reporting from calendar year to fiscal year. Any comments on how to do that? So I think thinking about date ranges and control of date ranges, if there's anything you want to show there.
Yeah, I think narrowing down dates, you can do a lot of that through a formula. Go ahead and open up a ticket and we can chat about this. If you send us a message down here, we do have some recommendations on how to handle that, but I would just probably need more time and a couple more follow-up questions on there.
Yeah, and then Emma, Anessa is asking, when you share the view, does it automatically set the permissions to view only or reader only?
So this is read only. You have a couple options if you want them to be able to open up the records, but when you share a dashboard, it's going to be in a read only state. However, changes are being made to the dashboard in SmartSuite. It's always going to be the real-time data.
Yeah, the important thing there with any shared view in SmartSuite, if you share it out to someone, we don't know who, and the reason why you don't have editing capabilities with a share is we don't know who would be receiving it if they're not credentialed into SmartSuite. So if you have a SmartSuite user and they have an alias, we activity track everything that happens for you, for your benefit, right, for compliance purposes. So any change, any edit that's made at the record level to that data, we date and timestamp, we track all that for you, and that sits at the record view. But if you're sharing a dashboard out, we don't allow editing because we need that traceability for you. It's really for your benefit.
And I'll go ahead and share this dashboard with the audience in case they want to use this to get some ideas from. But I will just reiterate, our solution templates have dashboards within them, and you can even take the dashboards that we've created in the solution templates and change the source to be your own data. So if you like the style of some dashboard, for example, in program management, there's one that's good. You can download this solution, and then you'll notice that there are a lot of styled dashboards as well. So I could come in here and I could move this dashboard into another solution, and then each widget you can edit and change the source that it comes from. That's another best practice as well if you want to repurpose styling of them.
Emma, I have another question for you here. Nico's asking, can you move widgets between views?
Not yet. We're definitely headed there. So first step, you can move dashboards between tables, but you can't move widgets between tabs, I think is what they're asking. But we do have plans on doing that eventually.
Excellent. Well, we're at time. I guess one last question. And Emma, since you're sharing your screen, we had a few questions come in just asking in general, like what are some great ways to learn more about SmartSuite? So I thought maybe you can talk through the resources page a little bit. There's a lot of different ways. Of course, you can always reach out to us. But Emma, if you can share the resources page and kind of talk through the different things we have on a weekly, bi-weekly and monthly basis, that'd be great.
Perfect. So on the bottom left-hand corner, if you don't have a SmartSuite account yet, definitely sign up for a trial, because everything we talked about today you can achieve and you can do in a trial. And at the very bottom left-hand corner here, you'll see help and resources. So this is a hub of everything that you can use to get answers, to learn about the product, and to explore different features. So I highly recommend starting with these videos. This will start to orient you on items like dashboards, automations, permissions. And they're created by our product manager. And then you also have the option you can contact us via support on this bottom icon if you have product questions or need help with use cases. Another great option would be using our help center. So this, you can type in just about anything you're interested in doing, and many, many different articles with images and videos will show up for you. And then if you scroll down, you can learn, if you like to self-serve and watch videos on different features and learn the product yourself, you can go into our SmartSuite Academy and community. It's a really collaborative space to get your questions answered. And if you're initially onboarding or you have questions that come up on a regular basis, our daily office hours is an hour every morning at 8 a.m. Pacific for you to get your questions answered live by a product specialist. And a lot of people are inspired, and, if people have similar questions, you can come in and see how other people are getting value from the product, and it really helps with the initial building. If you're very new to SmartSuite and haven't quite understood the basics or what it's all about, the Getting Started workshop is a bi-weekly event that you can come and watch. And then for someone who's really looking to become a builder and dive deep into the tool, we have a monthly training class that's hosted at the end of each month, which we can train for. This will all be listed under the upcoming webinars. So these two are all via that help and resource tab. And here is a lineup of our coming webinars. So we do host these every single Wednesday. So be sure to sign up for future ones that you're interested in.
Thanks, Emma. Well, we're a little bit over time, so I'll just wrap up here. Want to thank Edward for visiting. He had to hop, and he has a business to run, so he had to hop, but he said goodbye to everyone. He thanked everyone for showing and participating. But yeah, thank you to Rick. Thank you to Emma for showing us your dashboard skills. Probably we'll do a 2.0 version, kind of next level intermediate dashboard session. So thank you to everyone for showing up, staying up late, showing up early, participating. If there's any questions that didn't get answered, you can email us. You can email me directly or Emma. I'm at jeff@smartsuite.com. Recording will be sent out within 24 hours. And next week's webinar is the topic's enhancing in GRC with AI. So if that interests you at all, go ahead and register and save a seat. And thanks again for everyone for showing up today and participating and being a part of the SmartSuite community. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers all. Enjoy the day.